Through our application process, we verify that the applicant is providing enough insurance to cover the cleanup if an accident happens. So Chris has been doing a lot of this work for me. I know during his discussion he's kind of touched on these things that we currently issue COFRs for or have CPAs for. Just to go through them quickly, we have tankers which carry oilless cargo. We have non-tanks, which is 300 gross tons or over, is all we're concerned about. And of course, non-tanks do not carry oilless cargo, but do carry oilless fuel. Okay, so some examples of non-tank vessels are container ships, large barges, and even yachts if they're barging. Okay. And of course, we also issue COFRs currently for facilities, such as refineries, tank farms, production wells, offshore platforms, and pipelines. Right, of course, since we're going over financial responsibility, I wanted to just go over our current existing coverage amounts that we have in effect right now for these types of vessels and facilities. So currently for tankers, we have a $1 billion financial responsibility. Okay. For non-tank vessels, we have a $300 maximum amount requirement. Okay, but even though it says a $300 million maximum requirement, they do follow a tiered system that's based on the per barrel size of the tanks, of course. All right, and we have a $300 maximum in place right now for marine facilities. But of course, this is based on which Chris touched on a lot, the reasonable worst case spill volume, the largest reasonable worst case spill volume. Okay. And of course, we multiply that by our current per barrel cleanup fee. Existing financial responsibility. Okay. So it's going to be a lot easier than the rail. We already have this in place, basically. On the contingency plan side, he's looking at volumes that affect you for response times, where to deploy equipment, that sort of thing. Of course, we're just looking at the volumes as it relates to your current financial coverage. Do you have enough insurance right now to pay for an accident if it happens? There's a $12,500 per barrel cleanup fee. That fee is in effect right now and has been in effect since the 1990s. Okay, that was a negotiated amount. It's what we currently use. We are looking at that per barrel fee to see if that is sufficient with today's standards. Okay. We do want to look at that. Right now, that's what we have in place. At this point right now, that's what you can expect. We talk about putting work groups together. That's something we can take a look at as well. Okay, so as an example, we kind of touched on this earlier. This example that I have is currently one of our facilities that we have in place right now on the bottom here. So this example is something that I heard you guys talking about. If a particular facility has many different types of facilities, we're mainly concerned with the largest or reasonable worst case spill volume. That's all we're concerned about. That's what we're going to base the financial responsibility on. Okay, so just as an example, this particular company has a drilling platform. It's 14,321 barrels. They also have a pipeline that's 15,000 barrels. Of course, 15,000 is the largest. We're basing it on that. We multiply that by our 12,500 per barrel cleanup cost, and we have 187,500,000. Okay, so that's just an example. Of course, they didn't reach the $300 maximum, so we're doing the calculation. Just we want to let you know, we want to reiterate that there are different options for meeting the financial requirement. Okay. Currently, insurance and self-insurance, that's most popular right now that's being used. But I just wanted to mention that. Currently, if a company does want to self-insure, they should know that they do have to meet the financial criteria set in our regulations right now. Okay, as well as provide audited financial statements annually. All right. So this one was quick. Doesn't get into as much as rail does, but that's pretty much all I had for now. Is there any questions regarding certificates of financial responsibility?
Yes, please.
I'll make the assumption that it's cheaper to clean up onshore than it is offshore. Is there potential for there to be two separate cost amounts?
So the question or the comment is that there's a belief that it would be cheaper to clean up onshore than it is offshore. It was a comment that was raised this morning in rail as well for this area. And as Mike said, we are willing to take a look at that 12,500 barrel cleanup cost. You know, that is just what we have on the marine side.
So keep it in mind that it's hard to say which would be cheaper, right? We have to consider not only the pollution cleanup, but the damages as well. I mean, different types of damages, of course.
However you sign up for that, I'm probably going to be on that list. Because with the way you're talking, you're going to put a lot of mom and pops out of business. If in fact that goes through and there's no consideration for, I've already explained what I represent. There's no way anybody who produces a barrel in half a day is going to be able to comply with anything like that. Period. It's not going to happen. So if you guys want to take over some oil companies, you've got a good start.
Well, I think it's fair to say that we are not interested in taking over oil companies.
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
With the regulation, the way it's geared up, that's exactly what's going to happen. We're struggling to keep some of the mom and pops in operation to begin with. So as we go through this procedure, I need to sit down at the table and make sure you guys understand that. We're not just blowing smoke. This is a fact.
So I appreciate the comment. Again, these are financial responsibility requirements as they are set up in the marine. We're looking at a similar concept for inland. We can take a look at the per barrel. We can take a look at reasonable worst case spill. There's a number of those things that we can take a look at. And absolutely, please sign up for the financial.
I signed up something back there.
Perfect.
That's good enough.
Yeah.
Sign me up for everything because I'm going to have to be here to protect the little guy.
Well, we look forward to working with you.
Well, I look forward to being here.
Yes.
Just order of magnitude, since I like those figures, gut feel. If someone has a lease that's producing between 50 to 100 barrels a day,
Right.
about the maximum amount of insurance you can afford for spill requirement would be about $3 million. You've just put them out of business.
So, okay, I'm sorry. I have a hard time doing a higher amount up here by myself. So,
just order of magnitude.
Right. Okay.
The level you've described there, that is the impact it will have on the producing facilities on a facility basis.
For a 500 barrel reasonable worst case spill. Is that what you said? Okay.
50 to 100 barrels.
50 to 100
a day
barrels.
For stored tankage, maximum spill, let's say 500 barrels.
Okay.
Is fine.
Okay. Okay. I'm trying to do math while I'm trying to talk, and I'm not going to do that. So, did you get the comment, Joy? Okay. Please.
Yeah, what it kind of leading into what Chris talked about earlier, Chris, about the cost of an OSRO. Take into account here because here locally, the size that we are typically dealing with is a lot less damages, a lot less than what would happen on the marine side. Worst case scenario in one of my facilities would be a 1,000 barrel tank, right?
Okay.
Well, that's far exceeds what our current insurance covered, including the umbrella. So it is a huge cost factor to this smaller operator, not necessarily a mom and pop, but the smaller operator.
So please sign up for the work group. Obviously, again, this is what we were hoping to get from this meeting. Please.
And one thing to think about is the producers are already required to have berms around these facilities. So the reality, I mean, in theory, the reality is if you've got a 500 barrel tank, you've got a 550 or thereabouts barrel capacity berm. So your potential for release, in theory, is very low, zero.
It's a good point.
So we struggled with what we use on the marine side, the reasonable worst case flow volume on the plan, what I talked about, and what the COFR has. They don't have to be tied together. We could just say, you need this much insurance. You know, whatever makes the most sense to pay for those. And to untie those is where we need to be, I'm sure. Because it's hard to say, like on the rail, 10 tank cars, 20 tank cars. How much on the inland side? You know, there's some really smart economists that figure all that stuff out. Really smart. They can probably help us.
Right. And again, we started off by saying we appreciate that inland is not the same as marine. We had to have a place to start so that we could generate discussion. And so this is excellent that we are generating this discussion. Other comments on certificates of financial responsibility that haven't already been covered? Going once? Twice? All right. Thank you, Mike. So can you bring up my last presentation? Okay, so at this point, I'm just gonna walk through some of the next steps, what you can expect from us. And then again, I know I've said it a million times, but this would be 1,000,001. Please, please, please sign up for the work groups in the back. We will still have to figure out how we're going to conduct those, but that onus is on us. So obviously, I just said this, establish focused work groups. We need to get that information and those work groups moving as soon as possible. We're on the road the rest of this week, but we'll take a look at that starting the beginning of next week. After that, those comments will come into the regulation group who's actually going to be writing the regulations. Joy is our primary regulations writer. I'm sure that Mike and Chris are going to help out a fair amount, as well as Ryan, on the generation of those draft regulations. The internal draft regulations will go for review internally to make sure that all the I's are crossed, and that indeed we took into account a lot of the issues that came up today. Then they will go out, so this is a very aggressive timeline. They will go out September, October to all the folks here, as well as our sister agencies, and that may be state agencies as well as local and federal agencies. We are hoping that at this point, okay, that those draft regulations are going to be very close to what the final version is going to be, which means that the work groups are very, very important, because that's where that information comes in, okay? And we are hoping to have them submitted to the Office of Administrative Law November, December. So one of the things I think Chris covered this morning is, if we just say that for the sake of this discussion, just to make it easy, that the regulations become effective January 1. There will be a period of time in which you all have time to comply. 60 days, 90 days, that is something we have flexibility on. And then at that point, we have to review them within a period of time as well. So again, these are emergency regulations. They stay into effect for a year, which means that after these are adopted, we can then start a more formalized rulemaking process and revise anything that we need to revise, or perhaps even add things that we didn't have in the emergency rulemaking process. I know it's a lot. I appreciate that people are concerned for their livelihoods, for the people that they represent. We are very, very interested in working with everybody to make sure that what we get out of the other end addresses both adequate protection, does not have duplication, and meets the needs of the people who we are regulating, whether they're small mom and pops or whether they're Class 1 railroads. That's our responsibility as the government. Okay, here's our contact information. Please feel free to contact any of us here. If you have questions that are sort of beyond our area of expertise, we will put you in touch with people who you need to talk to. And then finally, thank you. Yes, please.
Sorry, you said this presentation is going to be online.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. There was something somebody else was supposed to remind me. So we will make this presentation available on our website. We will also post, when we get it cleaned up, Joy's notes on the website as well, so that people can take a look at not only what was covered here, but what was covered in Sacramento, as well as San Pedro tomorrow. Yes?
And I may have missed it, but when do you anticipate the work groups gathering together the first?
Soonish.
Tomorrow,
Very
next week.
soonish. Well, it won't be tomorrow and it won't be Friday, or tomorrow is Friday, isn't it? Sorry. But probably over the next couple of weeks. Tomorrow's Thursday. Thank you.
Bakersfield, or is it going to be conference calls? What's the potential setup?
So we haven't decided on the north and south yet. We really like to look at the work groups and see where the bulk of the people are, and then we'll go there. We don't want to really do a north and a south. We'd rather do a webinar or WebEx in the areas that we don't go to. And we can just go to Bakersfield all the time and make people come to us, but that would piss a lot of people off.
Or vice versa, right?
Or vice versa, right? So
Not necessarily, we don't mind going to the coast once in a while.
well, yeah, I mean, we can get in the city, go to San Luis Obispo County and say, okay, all right.
So I think Chris covered something that's really important. Obviously, if the bulk of the questions having to do with certificates of financial responsibility, having to do with mom and pop issues are down here in Kern County, then this would be the area where we would have it. Okay, there may be others in other parts of the state that are also interested, and we would have to make the ability for them to either call in or through a webinar. Please.
The only thing I would remind, I mean, Kern County produces 65, 75, 70% of the oil in California. So a lot of these other folks, I mean, okay, I know they think they're important.
Now thinking about it, I think maybe whether we break it up into reasonable worst case scenario, we break it up into production facilities and that. We need to maybe look at that.
Right.
We haven't thought of that because we only thought about the other one yesterday. So
Right.
we're on the fly here. We're just thinking about it as we go.
Well, and this helps us understand not just the difference between marine and inland, but the difference within inland. Inland is not a monolith as well, right? What goes on in Reading and the risks associated with that are different than the risks associated with here. So if you can be flexible with us and patient while we're trying to get this rolled out, we would really appreciate it. Please.
Yvonne, you just mapped out how we're going to get to these draft regulations by September or October.
Correct.
And you're going to establish work groups.
Correct.
Everyone's going to put in a lot of time and a lot of effort to think this out logically.
Right.
But are those work groups the only input into this, or could there be on September 1st another stakeholder that enters into the picture at the last minute and turns everything that we've been working on for the last several months upside down? Is that a possibility?
Is that a possibility?
No.
If anything is possible, is it going to happen? No.
They're going to get in early and they're going to provide their feedback and then we're going to make some decisions.
No.
And that's the way emergency regs are going to go.
No.
Because we can't keep going back and back and back. And that's what
Okay.
happens a lot when people want to come in, want to get briefed, and then want to make decisions. If you want to come in early and you help us, then that's the direction we're going to go.
But I also want to make sure that, we are trying to be transparent with everybody, right? We're trying to say, we hear your concerns, you put in your concerns, we agree to those things, and then at the 11th and a half hour, some other interest comes in and turns it all upside down. No, that's not going to work for emergency regulations. It's just not.
And then everybody else wasting their time.
Well, and everybody else, and we have no credibility, right? Right, that doesn't work for anybody. Are there any other questions, comments? Yes, please.
Question on the funding of this program?
Yes.
It's 6.5 cents a barrel.
Correct.
How is that being assessed? Who's it being assessed to?
So the question has to do with the fee that's being assessed to fund the program. Ryan talked about this a little bit earlier, so do you want to take it, Ryan? Oh, so the assessment of the fee to pay for the program. So maybe if you can cover both the admin fee as well as the response structure.
The division, Board of Equalization.
Speak up, Ryan.
Board of Equalization is responsible for collecting it. They anticipate, so the legislation gave them 90 days to start doing that. They are anticipating mid-September. I don't know if they are conducting workshops like this, because they know there are accounting issues. And what I mean by that are tracking the oil coming in. There was a meeting, a whisper meeting, and the Chevron gentleman there, the Chevron guy had all sorts of questions about how Chevron was supposed to track oil coming into refineries, coming out of the refinery, once it became refined, and where did it go? Kind of great questions for BOE to figure out how industry can document what goes around. Hopefully, so if you have questions like that, we can give you contacts.
Also something Brian covered.
It's the owner of the oil at the time it enters, but the refinery is collecting.
So did everybody get that? So Ryan, why don't you come up to the microphone and start giving me back here?
So that was his case.
Hold on. Hold on, Ryan.
Was against a refinery at the gate.
A marine terminal. Okay, so how about one question at a time? Can we start it back over here? Go ahead, sir. Yes.
No, the question was on the assessment. And who pays the assessment? Is it the pipeline company, the refinery, and you mentioned it was the owner at the time it was into the refinery?
Correct.
Repeat what he just said, please.
So the code says that the owner of the oil is on the hook for payment at the time it enters the refinery or the marine terminal.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, that's Rivera.
Okay. You had a comment, sir?
So that was contrary, so that was a change from the original Olympic Key C-strand bill, which was at the refinery gate, assessed to the refinery and not to the producer. So this was a change from that.
So original Leopard Keene established two pots of money, an administrative fund and a response fund. The administrative fund was just oil and petroleum products coming into a marine terminal. And it was the owner of the oil at the time received at the marine terminal. The marine terminal did the collection. So we took that same model, and it is so for the administrative fund, it is now collecting the fee at a refinery. That adding the refinery is new, but the design that is the owner of the oil at the time it comes in, that concept is the same. Does that make sense?
And what is the total assessment? You said there's an administrative and a...
So then this other fund is our response fund. It's only been available for marine oil spills, and it has a cap on it of 54 some odd million. And that fee has not been reimposed since a couple months. Once it got turned on in 1991, it was 25 cents a barrel. It filled up within months, and that fee has not been reimposed since sometime in 1991. That fee had refineries built into that collection, like I said, that decades ago. So
what's the fee now?
6.5 cents, which is the marine terminal fee. We kept the same number, and it is now 6.5 cents also at her refinery.
And the admin fee?
That is the admin
That is
fee.
the admin.
And the other for the...
No, didn't change. That was not touched at all in the legislation.
So you had a comment?
Yeah, you've been talking about crude oil systems, crude oil
Mhm.
releases. How about refined product lines with releases to them? Who's going to pay that? How you pay according to that when it comes out of the refinery and going the other way?
So do you want to talk about just the fee ones?
So the idea, the intent is that the fee be paid once. So if it's, let's say, crude oil coming into California by like a train, and it ends up at a refinery, it gets paid once at that when it enters the refinery, and then if it gets refined and then ships out and goes to, let's say, a tank farm or another refinery or some other facility, there will not be a fee in that back end of the process.
That's why we get up to it.
Right, the fee is only paid once. Any other questions about the fee? Any other questions about certificates of financial responsibility or anything else that we've covered? Yes.
Yeah, on the fee, I want to clarify.
Okay.
We produce a barrel of oil and we put it in the pipeline to the refinery. They're going to tack on 6.5 cents for that barrel.
So how did the oil get to?
We have a contract with a refinery that owns the pipeline.
Okay.
So is it the sales? Is it going to be a fee on top of that sale of that barrel of oil to the refinery? They're going to just pass it on to you guys, I assume.
I would assume
Yes.
that. I would assume that. But that's getting into your business, which we don't do.
Well, the regulation is stipulated 6.5 cents, right? Per barrel.
6.5 cents per barrel on every barrel of oil that crosses a marine terminal or
enters the
refinery.
refinery.
Right,
Whether it's rail, truck, or via pipeline.
correct. Or a vessel. Right?
Whether it's produced in California or brought in California.
Whether it's produced in California or brought into California.
So it's an additional 6.5 cents cost to the producer to sell that oil. Yeah?
The producer is the owner of the oil at the time it reaches the refinery.
So a lot of common carrier lines are going to increase their tariffs because they're going to have to pick up that cost.
Again,
And that's going to make the small struggle.
so can you, oh, okay, very good. I know we covered a lot of ground this afternoon. I appreciate greatly your candor, even your frustration, if that's part of what we're sensing, because this is very important to us that we understand what it is that we are being asked to do and to do it in a way that is collaborative, that addresses your concerns as best as we can, right? So please, sign up for the work groups. We really thank you for your attendance. We will stay here for a period of time if you have questions that you would like to ask us. Thank you very much.
Thanks.